Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Let's do the chanting straight away before our meditations and Dharma talk with joy, with awareness. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, about to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, about to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, about to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, about to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Hayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasumgati Bodhi Soha. Hayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasumgati Bodhi Soha. Hayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasumgati Bodhi Soha. So now we can do some meditation. Let's release the tension in our body. Get yourself nice and comfortable. And bring your mind inside your body. And let's release the tension all the way from the tips of your toes, up your legs, and then up to your shoulders, down to the tips of your fingers, and then up to the top of your head. Let's take a few moments to do this now. When you are ready, just scan your body again, just to see if there's any leftover tension that you can still release. Now bring your focus initially to the tip of your nose and follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe in your nose, all the way into your lungs, and then back out your nose again. Breathing in, breathing out. That's actually all we have to do right now. And then focus on it. Like place your mind onto your breath. If you become distracted, then replace your mind onto your breath. So if any thoughts arise, for instance, or any mental activity, agitation, don't cling to it, grasp at it, try to forcefully push it away or deny it. But simply let it go naturally by replacing your mind back onto your breath. And if your mind starts to become a little bit dull or sleepy, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. You can also add the extra technique of counting the breaths. One in breath, one out breath is one, so on, so forth. But don't count past 10. And if you get distracted on your way to counting towards 10, then go back to 1 at that time. So let's practice like this in silence for a short while. So now we can feel really pleased with ourselves, fill ourselves with universal love and kindness, friendship, compassion, all of these good qualities that we already have in abundance. So if you want more detailed explanation or guidance in this Tonglen practice, giving, taking meditation practice, then review the class from 2 weeks ago, where I actually utilized the meditation time to also give commentary, an overview commentary on this 7th verse. Okay, so today we'll do it quite briefly, just in brief, I should say, and also just one of the techniques. We will utilize the inhaling and exhaling technique. And whereas when you inhale the black smoke coming from the heart center of the other person or people into your heart center, freeing them from the suffering, at the same time destroying your ego, destroying your self-centeredness. On the exhale, on the out-breath, you visualize the white light going from your heart center and entering into their heart center. This represents all of your goodness, all of your good karma, your merits, and everything else that you find pleasing. You can even utilize a little bit of creativity in the visualization. You know, for instance, if you have a strong attachment to your car or something, you're giving your car away to the other people that actually need it. All right, so now visualize someone in front of you, or it could be a few people, your loved ones, family and friends. Visualize them in front of you right now. And initially you're going to take all of their suffering from them, from their heart center, one person, or if it's a few people, then you're taking the suffering in the form of the black smoke from their heart centers into your heart center. And then on the exhale, visualize white light coming from your heart center and going into their heart center. So let's do this in silence, just for a short period. Just before we started, I should have mentioned that we should bring to our mind the suffering of others so that we can develop and generate compassion, love for them, bodhicitta intention. So now let's continue practice with our loved ones in front of us. And now you can add a stranger or a few strangers in front of you as well. And visualize as you breathe in, black smoke representing their suffering coming from their heart center, as well as your loved ones, entering into your heart center and destroying your self-centeredness. And as you exhale, white light goes from your heart center into these living beings' heart center, fills them with all of your goodness and happiness. And now I'll also include in front of you a person or a few people that you may regard as enemies, find very difficult. Now also visualize the same thing, likewise to the other people. The black smoke leaving their heart center, representing their suffering, and entering into your heart center, destroying your ego, self-centeredness. And on the out breath, your white light goes from your heart center, representing all of your happiness, merits, and so forth, and enters into their heart center, giving them your happiness, your merits, your wisdom, your compassion, and so on. And now you can visualize the living beings and all the different types of beings, such as the ones that fly through the air, live on the land, under the land even, in the waters, born from wombs, born from eggs, born from moisture. Born through transformation. And even living beings that you don't know hardly anything or even anything about. Maybe you've seen a little picture of something really weird, looking very alien, maybe from the bottom of the ocean somewhere. Bring all of these living beings to mind right now. Visualize as many as you can in front of you. This could be thousands, but is actually representative or represents infinite living beings. And now on your in-breath, you take their suffering from them, relieve them of the suffering. Black smoke leaves their heart centers and enters into your heart center, destroying your self-centeredness. On the out-breath, same as before, white light leaves your heart center and enters into all living beings' heart centers, giving them your happiness, your merits, good karma, everything you find pleasing. And you can have the wish as you're doing this as well, just as we do in the four immeasurable prayer and also in the metta, loving kindness meditation. And that is, have the wish that all of these living beings are free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and have happiness and the causes of happiness, and that they eventually will attain unsurpassed supreme enlightenment. Same as yourself. And so now also be present to recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. So as you know, we're continuing our commentary and the overview or overviews. I think this is part 7 of the overviews. And the 8 verses of thought transformation is the text we're working off by Geshe Lengri Tangpa from 1054 of the Common Era to 1123 of the Common Era is when he lived. So this is quite an old text. And this is, you know, it's put together in verse form and represents the whole of the teachings that actually came from the Buddha, the mind transformation teachings or thought transformation teachings, okay? Changing our mind, you could say this, changing our mind from being self-centered to being compassionate, changing our mind from having dislike and hatred to being loving and kind, changing our mind from being ignorant to being wise, and so on and so forth. I think you get what I'm alluding to. Okay, so towards letting go of the worldly ways that we are so habituated in living with and by, and turning our mind to enlightenment, to the Dharma path leading to enlightenment. Okay, so we've already gone through, once again, I say it's some overviews. I've given you a few different ways of looking at things. I think the first one just came off the top of my head. The second one, a little bit more detail from a few notes that I've taken, both from my own mind as well as from the Dalai Lama's teachings that we utilized last time I gave commentary on these 8 verses. And also now from some more notes that I've taken, a little bit more detailed notes. And also coming again from His Holiness's teachings, some of them as well. I can't remember which ones, so I didn't write down this is from blah, blah, blah. I just have it in point form, just had the notes. Okay, so I'm going to read them to you and give you a little bit more commentary on top of that. We've already gone through the first 3 in this part, the first 3 of the verses. With the wish to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings, how more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. And whenever I'm with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. And also, in all actions, I will examine my mind, and the moment a disturbing attitude arises endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. We've already gone through those 3. And so this next one is, whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear, as if I have found a precious treasure. Okay, so some of these verses actually can sound quite similar if you're not familiar with the details in them. So hopefully by even the end of today, you'll have a little bit more clarity and see the differences as well in these, you could say, aspirational verses, which aim to transform our mind, like I said, away from being self-centered to become compassionate, away from being ignorant to become wise, and so on, okay? So this verse number 4, this verse emphasizes those thoughts focused on those who have very strong negativities. Okay, so these living beings, it could be somebody, let's say, for instance, an example, I actually explained this to a Jewish friend of mine who's also Buddhist, actually calls himself a Jubu. Like I've heard that expression before as well. But I actually said to him one time when he was talking about true compassion, I said, you have to have compassion for Hitler. And his mother at that time was actually the, I think something like the CEO or chairperson or whatever of the Holocaust Museum in Melbourne. So very strong Jewish family, and who were obviously, like all Jewish families, were very affected by the terrible things that man and also the people under him put into play, so we don't need to go into details, but I think you get my point. We have to have compassion for living beings that are like this, because not only are they suffering right now, even if they have a lot of power in the world, there's some around now that I won't even go into mention, but they're in the news a lot. They're terrible. Their behavior is so bad, but they still have some sort of power over some people and things like that. Even when they have that, they are actually really suffering. And it's almost like putting on a front, this arrogance, this bravado is actually a front for their fears and their sufferings and their ignorance and so forth. And so also they are going to create so much negative karma into the future. So even these living beings that are really, really bad, we should take them into our mind when we think of this one. Whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear, as if I have found a precious treasure. Obviously, we don't condone their bad behavior, just as we wouldn't condone our own bad behavior, for instance. Also, even living beings that I mentioned to you my personal experience of visiting prisons at different times throughout my life, And of course, some of the people in the prisons were behaving very badly as well. Excuse me. So we really should, turn our mind to them. They have very strong negativities. Don't be put off by that on our path to enlightenment. Generally, it's more difficult to have compassion towards such people afflicted by such sufferings and so forth when they have a very bad nature and bad personality and believe or behave so badly, believe that they're actually doing the right thing, some of these people. I believe they are looking after themselves, apparently. Actually, they don't understand the law of karma. They're doing the opposite. Also, actually, they should be regarded as the most supreme objects of one's compassion. Think about it. It's very easy, as I've said many times before, how to be compassionate towards those living beings that you have an affinity towards. And even strangers, if you bring to mind their sufferings, it's quite easy for you to develop or generate some sort of compassion towards them. But these types of beings, very difficult. That's why we say they're like the supreme being at that time, because they help us to develop this compassion. If anybody out there is really, really bugging us in our lives now, I'm not just talking about those beings that we actually don't know, but they're behaving so badly. I gave the example of them before, but people in your life right now, that really bug you at times, and just put them into a position in your mind that this is actually helping you to develop more compassion. Okay. And then this will turn around. Everything will turn around at that moment. You may have to continue doing it because maybe the habit is to react defensively or whatever towards being treated in a bad way. But actually, turn your mind like this, transform your mind like this, and eventually it becomes natural to do so. And actually use a bit of humor as well. You've heard me say before, I joke around often and say I'm actually the funniest person I know. Now, I'm not talking about being a genuine comedian. I'm talking about all of a sudden, maybe I react a certain way and to something habitually. And I look at, there's that old habit. You're hilarious. And then put your mind back onto the path. Okay. So, as if we have found a treasure to develop compassion. So treat them like, or see them like they're actually a treasure for us to be able to unveil our true nature, but right now develop this compassion, this bodhicitta. That'll do for that one. Number 5 says, when others out of jealousy mistreat us with slander, or mistreat me with slander, abuse, and so on, I will practice accepting the defeat and offering the victory to them. My notes for number 5 is, normally when others do you wrong without justification, in worldly terms, it is lawful to retaliate. I say this with a bit of a smile, because when I was writing that note, I thought that was quite funny, because it is actually legal. Like if somebody punches you in the face, and it looks like they're not going to stop, then actually it's legal for you to punch them back. But this is not Dharma practice, is it? So I'm using the punch then as like a metaphor. So best to avoid retaliating. It's best to take it as a teaching, work to transform your mind away from being, in this case, maybe defensive, maybe being offended, maybe worrying about your reputation. Oh, they're saying these bad things about me. In the long run, big picture, it doesn't matter. What matters is your state of mind. This is something you can control, or you can train your mind in a good way. Okay, so that's more important. So I'll just repeat what I just said, because I was giggling towards the end of it. Normally, when others do you wrong without justification, in worldly terms, it is lawful to retaliate and defend yourself. But actually, we really should let it go. Just let it be as it is. It doesn't matter. We don't have to win our argument. We don't have to be the one that appears to be on top in a worldly way. It is said a lot of Buddhist masters throughout the ages, a lot of them, they weren't famous, they weren't, they just go about their ways, and then students would go to them and go, oh, hang on a minute, this master can really help me on my path, and then they would help, no problem. You don't have to be always in the front, and, having people slandering you, worrying about your reputation. I had a lot of that in the entertainment industry. And even in the beginning, I guess, teaching the Dharma and things. It doesn't really matter in the long run. What matters is that you practice well, that you share the Dharma with others with good intention, good skills. So you let it go, offer the victory to them. You learn from the experience, okay? It's an opportunity to improve. Be proactive and not reactive. We can apply that quote again to that. Verse number 6 says, when someone has, or you have benefited and in whom you have placed great trust, hurts you very badly, practice seeing that person as your supreme teacher. And so regarding beings that we have done a lot for and help them a lot, normally we expect them to repay our kindness, with respect and with appreciation. That's normal. If they don't, normally we get upset. Or we maybe even turn our back on them and say, oh, I'm not going to hang out with that one. They're rude, but we should take that experience once again to learn and improve. We place hope in them, and then we hope for a good result because we have attachment, self and other. But we should think, if such a person harms me instead, I will not retaliate. I will be patient and forbear the difficulties. In other words, develop a really strong, courageous mind. Utilize these ways of transforming the mind, and utilize these difficulties and these negative situations to make yourself better, to improve, to learn from. Increase our patience. Reflect on their kindness. They're being kind to us in this sense. As I've said before, loved ones can brush our ego a bit. Maybe that's not so good for our practice. Whereas our enemies, metaphorically enemies, they can really make us angry, help us to see our anger, and therefore develop more patience when we apply the patience to the anger as the antidote. Also, when we get offended, it's like, who am I? Who is that person that's offending me? What is the offending? All of those three aspects, they're all empty. So this can help you to get closer to understanding the empty nature of all phenomena. So not only will it help you to be more compassionate, more loving, more patient, and all of the other good qualities, but actually help you to unveil the true nature of reality. Okay, get to know it at least a little bit, even if it's conventionally for a while. So reflect on their kindness, see them as a special guide or a teacher on the path to enlightenment. That one that's really testing you. I remember Dalai Lama one time in Melbourne. He said, after he gave a public talk talking about patience and compassion and so forth, and he said, don't leave your compassion and patience here at the stadium right now. When you leave, even if you're on public transport and there's rude people, I'm embellishing a little bit now. Don't get irritated with them. Even if they're nasty to you, don't get irritated with them. Bring this compassion with you, bring this patience, bring this nice feeling with you everywhere you go. Number 7 says, in short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers, and in secret I will take upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings, which we did in the meditation. So the Tonglen, giving, taking, exhalation and inhalation meditation. Give all of your goodness to others, our previous mothers, always remember that. All of our merits and the like, Take all of their suffering and bad karma upon yourself. Give up attachment to yourself and give up attachment or aversion to others. Then we have, I'll continue with that a little bit. So up to this point, the verses have dealt with the practice of relative or conventional bodhicitta. We should give up thoughts of gaining something for oneself, even something like better health, better financial situation. Give up those thoughts. The results will come anyway. Actually, probably the results will come quicker if you have less expectation, less attachment. This is practicing for yourself only if you think like that. And it is worldly. It is not true compassion, or practice so people respect you, your ego. You can regard you as a great practitioner, for instance. Don't practice with that intention. Don't try to always impress people. It's good to sit. If you can sit in meditation, look like that, But don't do it so people look at you and go, oh, that's a great meditator. Good chanting, doing all of the bowing, everything you do, all nice in the temple, but you're doing it to impress others. That's the wrong way to practice. Okay, that's worldly, that's self-centered. So you practice to train your mind and also to help others to do likewise. I know we've only got under a minute to go, so we will have to pick this up next week, just for the last verse, okay, before we go into the generating of the bodhicitta, as I mentioned to you, and then we start the longer commentaries on each verse. Your practice should be free from being influenced by only worldly or selfish motivations, okay? So I can't count the seconds as I'm talking to you. So I don't know how long we've got, whether it's 20 or 30 seconds, maybe I'll get cut off. So hopefully you've enjoyed this week's class and we'll enjoy next week's class as well and into the future. No time limit when we finish this commentary, and I will cover many subjects within this commentary as well. All right. Thank you for your time. I rejoice in your merits.